What's up everybody, hope you have an amazing day so far. My name is Phil and today's video we're going to check out 2Note's brand new software release, GENOME 2.0. Thank you everybody for tuning in today's video. Super glad that you're on board. As I said before, 2Note has released GENOME 2.0 just today, and I'm super excited for it. In case you are completely oblivious to what GENOME actually is, GENOME is 2Note's very own AMP Suite plugin and was famously one of the first plugins which actually supported full NAM model loading in there via the Codex AMP block. So not only did you have like the original stuff which 2Note had integrated in there, but they were one of the first big commercial players out there who actually integrated NAM into their product portfolio. And while the NAM loading capabilities were one of the main appeals when the software came out, because there was not that much going on else in that plugin, of course, they had their own integrated AMP sims and whatnot, but they all didn't really sound that good. However, they put a lot of effort into this program over here, and now with the 2.0 firmware update and some of the features which are coming in here, I really must say they did an incredible job, and I deem this now on par with all of the top plugins in the game. And one added feature in GENOME 2.0 got me really interested in this program, and that is the PARADEX Amp block, which allows for parametric captures. It really sounds incredible, but we're gonna get into that in a moment. Before we do that, I do want to set a disclaimer out over here that 2Note is actually collaborating with me on this video. They have sent me out a free license of GENOME for me to showcase on you, and there's potentially going to be some further collaboration in the future. Just want to get that out of the way. However, you will get my honest thoughts and opinions. If there are shortcomings which I stumble upon, I have no issue in pointing them out. I think that's also a very fair assessment for all the companies which I always work with. Creative freedom lies on my side, but you know, I try to always objectively and fairly review the stuff which I get over here on the channel, but therefore it's important for you to know in which business relation I'm standing to the company behind the product. With this software, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's go right into my Reaper session where I got GENOME open, and then we're first going to check out the plugin while exploring the tones of that one, and then we're going to get more and more into the specialities and the features which GENOME 2.0 bring to the table. I now got GENOME open over here with a preset which I created by playing around with the plugin, and I first want to guide you through the menu because it's a little bit extensive, but it's looking way more dangerous than it actually is, before we then move into actually creating a rig from scratch and then looking at some of the key features which come with GENOME 2, like the PARADEX and the Transpose feature. But that stuff, which is going to be at a later point, first we check out the graphical user interface. So as you can see over here on the very top, we have a different blocks which we can assign to our liking over here. If we click on one of these, we have different effects which we can add, like an amplifier, where we can choose different high gain models, or cabinets, or delay, and whatnot else. So we have a lot of different things which we can freely assign to these blocks over here, which is pretty cool by itself, and we can drag them around and drop them to our liking. So if I want to have the cab before the amplifier, you can actually do that. And not only that, but you can actually run also stereo effects and stereo signal chains by just clicking over here. And here you can split them, and then you got a full stereo thing, but you can also merge them afterwards, and here you can set up different panning options. So very extensive and powerful stuff which other plugins don't have. Right above this effects block lane, as I would call it, we have some general controls above. We got some general settings over here which we're not going to look into. These are all kind of the audio preferences, window size, and so on and so forth. We have a library manager, so to speak, where you can choose between different GENOME templates or the respective GENOME intro, GENOME, and GENOME suite presets. You can also set up your own user databases over here, and over here you can see BankD Fill. That is one which I created, and that's full of empty presets which we're then going to use at a later point in time to create a rig from scratch. However, apart from that, you got a tuner. We got an input gate over here, and we got the Transpose feature, which we're going to check out later, but very cool stuff, works fantastically well. Apart from that, you have MIDI automation, and over here you can set the sample rate. I'm gonna go ahead and, in order to give you the best quality, go to high plus, which is quite a high sample rate. Everything above that is a little bit CPU taxing and would be something which you would then render in post-processing and not use it in real-time playing. We have a tap metronome and preset manager, as I said before. And right over here we got MixFit. That is one of the new features in GENOME 2, where you can actually tailor the sound towards fitting better in a mix. That is also something which we will cover in a separate section of the video. Two Notes have specifically asked me to showcase this in a mix context, so that's what we're going to do at a later point in time. Okay, let's move on with the below bottom end over here. We got the input gain, which we can set up. We have different mono stereo configurations. We can set on the amplifier block on or off, save our presets, and so on and so forth. And then in the end, we got an FX out and a genome out. So we have a lot of different customization possibilities within this plugin, which in itself is already pretty cool. Let's play around with this preset, change a few settings, see where we're going at before we then go over and create a completely new preset by scratch. But before we do that, I just want to showcase the guitar which I am playing today. This is my Balaguer Espada 2024 limited edition with the Hypernova pickups. Fantastic guitar, has been provided to me by the fine folks of Balaguer Guitars in exchange for a review which I already did. So I'm playing this guitar lately a lot, really liking it and digging it so far. Yeah, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and just play a few riffs and see what we're getting. So that already sounds really good, really close to the real deal, how I remember the 5150 Mark I sounding. We are boosting this with a Tube Screamer, the Green Meanie. I'm gonna go ahead and do that classic Drive Zero level full thing, tone adjust it to taste so that we're getting a little bit more gain out of this beast. Nice. Let's go over to the amplifier, just play a little bit around with that one. When it comes to checking out 5150s, my test, if it sounds real, is always cranking the presence, because the slope of the presence is kind of starting around 7, and then at 9, it's getting really, really, like fizzy and, like trebly. So let's see if we can actually replicate that. That sounds really good. Let's go ahead and take down the master. All right, okay, let me go ahead, because I want to find out now if the master volume behavior is being replicated. Let me go ahead and crank the master completely and take down the volume a little bit. It should get kind of woofy and honky in the mids. Nice, nice. That sounds like the real deal, basically. Let's see what the lead volume does, if that's just a volume control. Yeah, it just seems to be a regular lead volume. So the master is kind of doing the thing where you have the post gain on the 5150 and the volume is just a volume to kind of balance out the channels. So really cool stuff, and that kind of brings me to one of the core features which come with GENOME 2.0. That is the TSM-AI amplifiers. The TSM-AI amplifiers really sound completely different than the amplifiers which they had in before. They react and feel like the real deal. I do have an inkling on why that might be the case. This might have to do something with the PARADEX amp knob, which we're going to explore in a moment, which allows parametric amp captures. So I assume that these TSM-AI amplifiers somehow in their underlying architecture are using also the PARADEX captures of two notes and their team, which they did. They did a fantastic job. This sounds like a real 5150. But of course, this 5150 is not the only TSM-AI amplifier which they have in here. They got a lot of stuff going on. I'm just going to go ahead with the Diabolus, because that's obviously the Randall Satan, and that's an amplifier which I always revered and liked. So let's see what we're getting. All right, I can immediately hear that this tone is way too fizzy. I would assume that this is because of the Dune IR cab, which we got currently loaded. Dune IR cabs are basically two notes proprietary cabinet capturing technology, which they also implemented into the torpedoes. And they got a ton of different Dune IR cabs, which you can purchase on the store. I think they're like multiple hundreds by now, and buying them all costs like 1,700 euros or something. It's absolutely mind-boggling how much stuff they got. But they got already a cool selection of stuff added in GENOME. I already purchased some Dune IR cabs during my tenure in checking out plugins. So I'm not sure which ones are now the ones which are included into GENOME and which one are then just my collection. I'm just going to go ahead and roll with the Petaluma, which is a Mesa Boogie oversized cabinet. Much better, much better. It's now a little bit on the, I would say, on the darker side. So let's go ahead and bring that mix in a little bit more to the SM57. Okay, and now we can go ahead and set up the amplifier to our needs and our liking. So I need more gain. I always need more gain. So more girth, maybe a little bit more grind, gain up, and let's click that boost switch over here. Maybe a little less presence and therefore some more depth. Let's see what that sounds like. That's a little bit too much on the muffled side. So let's roll that back. Let's go ahead and build a complete rig absolutely from scratch, starting with nothing. So I'm first gonna use the input gate over here so that I get a little bit of a cleaner signal. What I usually go with is round about minus 70 dB when it comes to the gating, and I always go for the soft one. Next up, I want to have some sort of overdrive boost. There's a lot of stuff, as you can see. When you go to distortion, we also got the ST1. Let's go with the ST1. Then I will set the amplifier over here in case I want to set up some other effects before the amplifier. So there we go with the amplifier. We got the high gain. Let's go with the Snakebite, which I believe is, a Soldano. Let me disable the Ultra Drive for a moment so that we get less noise. I will set this to the OD channel, overdrive a little bit lower, like so. Master, let's see what that sounds like. I forgot to add the cabinet, so let's do that. Going over here onto the cabinet, you can either choose between an IR loader or the DIN IR cabinet. I want to use the DIN-IR cabinet, and I'm going to go with the Bridge Vintage C, which is basically a 1960 AV with vintage 30s. And yeah, slapped on the SM57, put it a little bit away from the center. And yeah, microphone mix is okay. So you got a lot of different stuff over here. Too much to cover every single setting. Okay, now let's go ahead and add the Ultra Drive. Let me go ahead and add an IR loader so that I can switch between the DIN-IR cab and the IR loader. So there we go. I'm going to load one of the impulses which I really like. I now loaded one of York Audio's Marshall 4x12 1960 AV impulse responses, and this is what it would sound like with the IR instead of the DIN-IR cab. Sounds fantastic as well. Let's go back with the DIN-IR. Both sound absolutely incredible. Okay, let's go ahead and now make this tone usable as a lead tone. For that, I would need a reverb. So I'm just gonna go with some, with something which is a little bit easier to use, the spring reverb in this case. That's nice. And then let's go ahead and add delay. And we're just gonna go with the studio delay. I'm gonna turn off the B side of all things and then just concentrate on the A side. Gonna set the pan in the center, set the milliseconds, feedback a little bit lower, dry wet down, high cut like so. Let's go ahead and disable the Ultra Drive just to see what we're getting. Nice full chunky tone. So we can go ahead and just add more preamp gain. Nice. You can now use all different types of effects over here, which I unfortunately cannot cover in such a video like this, but you have different modulation effects. Let's go with one last modulation effect, and let's go with an element phaser. I suck at tapping. Let's move over to the feature which has me by far the most excited about GENOME 2.0, and that is the PARADEX amp block. You might be familiar with the Codex amp block, where you can load in different NAM types like NAM Feather, NAM Standard, Guitar ML, IDA-X. All of that stuff you can load actually into the Codex, which was one of the main appeals of GENOME to begin with when it hit the market. But we're now getting the true upgrade, the PARADEX. You can do parametric amp captures with this feature over here. It's absolutely mind-boggling how good it sounds and how much it reacts like the real amplifier. There's a capturing process to this where you can define what knobs you have, what the names are of the respective knobs, what switches you have, and then you have to do all kind of different capturing, like setups, and there's gonna run a short snippet of the NAM trainer file through your reamping setup, and then in the end you're gonna have like a full NAM file, which is then basically created and basically the underlining architecture behind the PARADEX, and everything combined really gives you a realistic reflection of what the original amplifier sounds like. Now, there's one catch to this, which we have to talk about. The PARADEX amp capture which you do is not as accurate sounding to the real deal like a snapshot on Neural Modeler A1 or especially A2. However, having the, let's say, reactive behavior of the amplifier within the knobs like the real deal or very similar to the real deal is a trade-off which I'm very much willing to make when I want to kind of get the full experience of an amplifier. Alright, I can tell you all night long how great PARADEX is, but proof is in the pudding, so I made a setup over here where you can actually see the amplifier, see PARADEX, and we can compare different tones to each other. Now, reamping chain is basically my guitar into the interface into Le P-split, so that it has a one-to-one conversion that goes into the JVM. JVM goes into the same load box which I captured the PARADEX with, and that goes into the interface. Both are using the same impulse response over here, and as you can see, the amps are set fairly similar. So let me double check if there's something else going on. Maybe a tad less presence over here on the PARADEX to match the amplifier, and a little bit more resonance. Let's go with that. But I think everything else should be very similar from what I'm seeing. And by clicking over here on this, I can toggle between, now it's the PARADEX which is active, so the blue one is the PARADEX, and the green one is the reamp. So let's go ahead, riff a little bit around, first the PARADEX, and then the actual real amp. Now, as I said before, they do sound a little bit different, so the fidelity is not 100% there yet. However, when adding the graphic EQ over here with a slight adjustment, we are getting very close. Very close indeed. Let me go ahead to the amplifier and change some settings, which are a little bit more extreme. Okay, now these settings are not meant to sound good. I just want to see how good the PARADEX matches the amplifier. Okay, we got both settings matched up. I'm gonna leave the graphic EQ on. Okay, the amplifier is a little bit more gainier. We can adjust this with a little bit on the gain over here. Mind you that there can be some differences because you have to set up the captures by yourself, and there can be some differences while doing the capturing. So, okay, what else do we have? I hear a lot more high end on the amp, so I'm going to use the graphic equalizer in order to set that up. And maybe more treble, like so. Still more gain, so I'm going to go ahead and put the input a little bit higher so that we get that chunk. We're getting close, so you need to do a little bit of adjustment still. This is the beginning of this kind of technology, I will say. So I believe that this is kind of, like being on the forefront, being the first company to actively offer this. It's doing a really good job in how it reacts. Let me go ahead with maybe another example. So basically everything on 5 except for the mids. And I believe if we now go ahead again and set the graphic EQ to what I had before, then we're going to get very close. Yeah, I mean, it's not 100% there yet, as I said before, but you get kind of the same behavior between the PARADEX block and the amplifier. And I believe that being on the forefront of this technology is very admirable from 2Notes, and implementing this into GENOME, into basically just another update, is really cool. Back to the feature set of GENOME, there are two things which I want to showcase. One is the Transpose and one is the MixFit. Before we then close this video off with my final thoughts and conclusions, let's go first to the Transpose section. And yeah, it works pretty good, I must say. You activate it over here, you set your Transpose over here, and normally I go with +1 because I'm in E flat and I want to go to E, or 1 down. Let's go with 1 down. So there we go. And now I can play a little bit, Exodus or something. I must say the tracking is very, very good. Very quick tracking, not really much artifacts going on. I tested this against some different transpose options on the market, and this one by far won. It blew the competition away, and that's really, really cool. Makes a lot of fun to play through. It's very smooth. Yeah, what is not to like about it? Let's move over to the final feature which I want to showcase before we wrap things up, and that is the MixFit. Now the MixFit can be accessed over here by clicking on this right corner, and that will open up this MixFit window where you can set up all different things post-processing wise in order to get the guitars to fit better in the mix. I got a small song over here which I made for the NAMM A2 video. Let's first listen to the song itself, and then we just dig a little bit around what MixFit can actually do for us and kind of bend and twist and manipulate the sound. So already you can hear it's a little bit hollow in the mids, and let's play a little bit now around with a MixFit while the song is playing. I'm just gonna kind of crank the knobs and see what's happening. So you already could hear basically it's kind of like an exciter EQ thing going on. The character is quite interesting depending on what you want to achieve. This might be actually the golden ticket to change a 2-scooped metal tone if you want to kind of mellow it out a little bit. Sometimes EQ cannot get you right there, so the character is pretty cool. I really like the fact that you can change the slope of the low cut and the high cut. That's always welcomed. So let's listen to the guitars on their own and play a little bit around with the high cut and low cut. So very different, especially on the low cut. It does make a huge difference whether you're having like that gradual slope from the 12 dB or if you have basically that brick wall behavior on the 48. Let's just play a little bit around with the pick, attack, and tightness. So also here on the pick and tightness, it's very subtle, but it can be actually exactly that feature which you need in that moment to tighten things up a little bit. So I think that's really useful. Let's go ahead and play around with the rig out where we got different clipping behavior. Also here, a lot of stuff which you can set up, very subtle. I'm just gonna play the song again and then work with the rig in and rig out. I hope that you can hear that as well. Whenever I'm turning on the MixFit feature, it kind of scoops it out, fits it a little bit better into the mix overall, while when turning it off, it has that very, I would say, bloated, hollow, mid-forward sound to it. I mean, of course, I'm now loading all of the features into there. You will have to adjust that for yourself when doing mixes and checking out the MixFit functionality. Let's wrap up this video with my final thoughts and my personal conclusion. I must say that I'm really genuinely impressed by the evolution which GENOME has undertaken. No pun intended, but it is a little bit funny. Yeah, GENOME has come a long way since its initial inception a few years ago. At first, I was not a huge fan of the plugin, and especially not of the amplifiers integrated into that one, but the TSM-AI amplifiers, which we're hearing over here in this plugin, sound really good. I think it's very, very much usable now than it was before. And of course, parametric captures is absolutely fantastic. I personally really like still using NAMM A2, and that will be my go-to sound because it's the most accurate thing, but this will be definitely something which I will be exploring more and more as time passes by. And I do believe that these kind of features push the envelope further for what is possible in the capture technology game, because it's a little bit stale. NAMM is kind of the king of everything and better than everything. So having a little bit of fresh insight and new ideas is always a very welcome change. And for that one, I really applaud and admire 2Notes. Apart from that, GENOME is awesome. Go check it down in the description below in the link. The parametric capture of the JVM OD Orange mode is going to be available on my coffee shop for free for download. There's going to be maybe an option to donate. Got to see if I can set that up. If you want to do so, I highly appreciate it, but absolutely zero pressure. Just enjoy the tones which you're getting out of this one. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.